the federal government has no right to force citizens to buy a product in the market. That's the starting point. And, so he acknowledges that, and is filing this suit. You know, the courts will decide whether the attorneys general have standing. It seems to me they probably do, but certainly I wouldn't try.
I mean, I've talked to some contracts where they say that the courts have traditionally given them sort of blood to the states to regulate interstate commerce here. I mean, you know, the argument is that you can't punish economic inaction, but sort of the flip side of that is these folks will inevitably participate in the provider market. So there is some compelling interest there.
We've got this ongoing argument about how much power the Constitution grants the federal government, and the courts have recently acknowledged that there are limits to the Commerce Clause. There are some who would like the Commerce Clause to be an excuse to empower the federal government to do absolutely anything, because if you make a sufficiently convoluted argument, you can argue that almost breathing, has something to do with commerce at some point. That's clearly not what the Commerce Clause was intended for. It was not meant to give the federal government unlimited powers, and I think most people recognize that it does not include the power to compel a private citizen to buy something. So we'll see. We'll adjudicate this and find out.
Mr. Evans this week as Appropriations Chairman said Mr. Corbett wouldn't have done this had it not been for his primary against Mr. Miller. You think it's a fair criticism? You think he's tacking? To what extent do you think he's tacking to the right because of the primary?
I have no opinion. You should ask Attorney General Corbett about his motivations. I agree with what he's doing, and if you want to get into his motivation, that's a question for him. All right.
Much good to see you. Thanks.
Yep.
Hi, Joel Rose from NPR News.
You just want to go over here?
Yeah. And, well, it looks like
This is Kevin. Yeah.
It's a great environment. The people in Pennsylvania really don't believe that we ought to have a government engaged in serial bailouts and massive, unprecedented deficit spending. The government take over health care, and so I've argued against these things for a long time. Both my potential opponents, Joe Sestak and Arnold Spector, have supported this whole array and this massive expansion of government. They're on the wrong side of these issues, and I'm guessing on the wrong side of Pennsylvania voters.
there are some signs in the polls this week that as Americans find out a little more about the health care bill, that it's slightly more popular than it was, a week or two ago. Do you think that people will like this bill more as they get to know it better?
No, I don't. I think the more they see about this, actually, the less they'll like it. 2,000 pages of mandates. They haven't seen all the mandates yet. We just see in today's paper and yesterday's newspaper, corporation after corporation that's disclosing massive charge-offs they're going to have to take. I think people hadn't fully expected that. All the tax increases that people haven't fully digested yet and aren't even aware of as they become increasingly aware of that. Taxing even new jobs, it makes no sense at all. The spending, people are becoming increasingly concerned, not decreasing, but increasingly concerned with the amount of spending that's happening. So this bill, of course, is a huge amount of spending. So no, I think the more people learn about this, the more worried they're going to become.
The Democrats still enjoy, on paper at least, a big registration advantage in Pennsylvania,
Right.
and one that's been growing for about a decade. Is that a real advantage in a general election or not?
Well, look, I mean, a political party would always like to have more registrants than it has. That's, we try to sign up Republicans as the Democrats try to sign up Democrats. But I think what's more important is what do people feel about the big policy issues of the day? And I talk to Democrats and independents who agree with me that we shouldn't be forcing taxpayers to bail out failing companies. We cannot borrow and spend our way to prosperity. We don't need, in fact, can't possibly have massive new tax increases all across the board. people I talk to don't think we should saddle our economy with cap and trade and card check and the kinds of policies that are being pursued. So I think Democrats and independents are responding to my message of ending the bailouts, restoring fiscal discipline, and bringing some balance to Washington. And I think that message is much more important than registration numbers.
The next issue, apparently, that the Democrats are going to try to tackle is financial reform, or one of the next issues. It seems to me that that could play a little better for them because, you know, everybody wants to be seen as the one reeling in Wall Street in this particular climate, right? How are Republicans going to have to play that issue?
Well, look, I think we need some reforms. And if the Democrats approach this in a responsible fashion and take ideas from across the aisle and try to, you know, do the kinds of reforms that will help diminish the risk of systemic financial catastrophe and diminish the risk of future bailouts, if they do that, then that is good for them, but it's also good for the country, and Republicans should support that. Now, if they go in the direction of institutionalizing the idea that taxpayers should be forced to bail out failing banks, that would be a huge mistake for our country, and I don't think it'd be wise politically for the Democrats either. We'll have to see how that turns out.
What are you hearing from constituents about what the most important issues to them are? I mean, is it just healthcare?
No, it's not. It's economic growth and jobs. Actually, I hear from a lot of people who say, why have they spent over a year focusing exclusively on having the government take over healthcare when they ought to be focusing on policies that'll help generate sustainable jobs? And you know, there's a lot of anxiety. You know, first of all, you have way too many people who are just out of work. And then you have an awful lot of other people who are concerned that they could be out of work soon. So, number one priority that I think people want their senators and their government to focus on is job growth.
I know you said that you don't really have a dog in the fight in the Democratic primary. You certainly you don't have much control over it. You said it. But if it is, if it is Arlen Specter, then is that have a personal resonance to you?
No, it's not personal at all. I mean, it's about policy here. And as I mentioned, I mean, Senator Specter has been on both sides of every issue he can be on. He's systematically tried to be on both sides so that he could go to opposing groups and tell them both, I'm with you. But the fact is, when push came to shove, he supported all the bailouts of all the failing companies, forced taxpayer money into these giant banks and other institutions, supported the nationalization of whole industries, supported all the spending that has given us absolutely unsustainable deficits and debt. He supported cap and trade and card check and this healthcare takeover. And that is just out of step with where Pennsylvanians are.
And, you know, for all the momentum that the Republican Party would seem to have in this election year, and you know, all the reasons you just mentioned for Arlen Specter's numbers to be down, he's not totally out of this race if you look at the polls. You know, and some polls have even shrunk him ahead recently. What's going on?
Look, we're 8 months before the election, and a lot of different polls have a lot of different methodologies, and I don't bother going through and parsing them all. The only poll that matters is on election day, and I am confident that whoever the Democratic nominee is, I will win that race. I don't know whether Arlen Specter wins that primary. I think Joe Sestak is very much a very competitive figure in the race. We'll just wait and see what the Democratic voters decide.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks very much for your time.
Nice to see you.
Guys?
Quick picture.
And it's
Sure.
You're gonna videotape them taking a picture?
You know,
I mean, really? Like, I mean, what? You don't worry about how this degrades the discourse of politics, you know?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God.
Good to go? All set? Yep. Thanks, Mitch. Nice to see you. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, take care, guys.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.
gonna play this game with me?
I don't see why you have to follow him.
Well, if he's talking, I need to have it on tape.
He's walking.